Hello and welcome to the latest installment in our UXDX online series. I hope you're as excited as we are for the event that we have today and the amazing speakers that are coming up shortly. But before we jump into that, I want to give a very quick introduction to UXDX and why we host these events. So our mission at UXDX is to help companies shift from building software using waterfall projects to using empowered autonomous product teams. And the reason why that's our mission, because we believe in a high change environment, it's more efficient to have teams who really know the customer, really understand the business needs, and are able to iterate quickly and find the solutions that work best for customers. If you're in a low change environment, it makes sense to use a project team, build up a team, build something at one part of your kind of company, move them over to another one. But a lot of companies I work with nowadays have hundreds of projects in parallel. So they're constantly touching different bits of the product. So in that situation, it makes sense to have people who really know it instead of those kind of people who just kind of jump in from place to place. Now, that's really easy to say, oh, we'll just swap from projects to product teams, but it's really hard to do in practice. And that's where we invite people to come along and talk and share how they're changing a bit of their process, a bit of how they're working, so that they can adopt or move closer towards this continuous iteration product team style way of working. Now, hopefully, when you listen to the talks, you'll have some questions come up because it's great if you're starting to think about how can I apply this in my context in the place that I'm working. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them. You can post them in the chat box on uxdx.com or on LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're watching this from, and we'll put those questions to the speakers. Sometimes we can't answer every question in the time spot that we have, and that's why we have the UXDX community Slack group. And in there, one of the channels is Ask the Speakers. So if we don't have time to get through all of the questions, we'll put any leftover questions in there, and we'll invite the speakers to come and ask them or answer those questions for you. But that's enough about kind of UXDX. You're here to actually listen to the talks. So first up, we have Wolfram Nagel he's a senior UX designer at TeamViewer, and he'll be talking about UX for the win, customer-centric value creation with a jobs to be done mindset. So I'd like to welcome Wolfram to the stage. Hello, Wolfram.
Hello, welcome everyone.
Thanks.
Sorry,
Over.
I can start. Okay, so thanks for the introduction. Welcome everyone. I'm going to talk about today how we use jobs to be done to create value with a customer-centric mindset in our company, and some pretty short introduction. So I'm co-founder of the designmethodsfinder.com. I work at TeamViewer since 6 years now. I wrote a book, and if you want to know more, please reach out to wolframnagel.com. So the general and the core idea, I guess, for many or for all of us, is we want to create value for our users and for our customers. And if we don't do this completely wrong, we also will create value for the company. In order to achieve this, we developed in the past years a customer-centric value customer-centric value creation framework. That's how we call it. I'm going to introduce this briefly at the end of the talk. Now I will introduce you to how we apply this, why we do this, the mindset behind, and some tools. So yeah, I guess many of you can agree that you normally and nearly no company out there has not enough information. It's rather always too much. So we know we get a lot of customer feedback. We have new product ideas, many feature requests, for example. We know how people use the product from usage tracking. We have other insights. We know about pain points, problems. We have a lot of ideas, and basically the backlog grows faster than you can work on the item. So always it's a lot of information. The main challenge generally is how do we prioritize? So is this feedback now representative? Is it objective? Is it relevant now? Is this important, or is this just one customer? What should we put on the roadmap? What should be done first? What next? And in general, how do we prioritize? That's the main challenge to organize all these information we get. I have some examples and stories to explain the mindset behind our approach. So the first one is from Sarah Conklin, who's a product manager, product designer. her daughter came to her and he told her, "Mom, I want a pair of flippers for my birthday, but I'm actually not into flippers," which is weird. So what Sarah did, like, let's call it research, she talked to her daughter to find out why, and she found out that her daughter wants to feel like a mermaid. So she's basically using these flippers to play mermaid, but maybe these flippers would be even better for Sarah's daughter. So what I want to say with that example is it's about the job. So flippers aren't obviously always used to improve at swimming. Some people obviously also use flippers to feel like a mermaid. And if Sarah knows now what the job of her daughter is, she's able to provide the best possible gift for her daughter's birthday. And that's also the message for you and for us, basically in the company. We need to know our customers' job, what do they want to get done. There's a phrase that says people hire a product to get a job done. And in that sense, this little girl hires the flippers to feel like a mermaid. Maybe her mother could also buy a mermaid costume and would also serve the job. And to serve our customers in the best possible way, we need to talk to them. We need to understand them, like Sarah did with her daughter. Another example is from the listen to music area. So it doesn't matter when you lived or when you listen to music like 50 or 40 years ago or now. It doesn't matter if you use cassettes or listen to CDs, MP3 players, iPod, or streaming services. The importance, if you like, music does not change. The technology can change, but the job, listen to music, is stable over time. And when you are working in that business, let's say your main job in that case is listen to music, you will do qualitative research and you might find out a lot of needs that your users and customers have, like listen to favorite music when on the go, when running, when having a shower. That's a huge difference. And or maybe they want to share their favorite songs with others, and the list grows and grows. There's a lot of needs, can be more than 100 needs. And then you have the same challenge as I mentioned at the beginning. How do we prioritize? So shall we go for the listen when running feature, or should we improve the playlist feature? I have no idea, because all sound reasonable. What you can do, you can ask your customers 2 questions related to the same need, which is how important is it for you that you can listen to your favorite music when you're on the go? And how satisfied are you right now regarding this? And then they can answer. They have 5 options, from not important at all or not satisfied at all to this is extremely important or I'm extremely satisfied. There's a pretty easy formula behind, taken from outcome-driven innovation from ODI and Strategin. And when you apply this, you get something like this, which is a map. All these little dots represent one of the needs I just showed you before. And this shall and can help you to prioritize. So you have 2 axes, importance and satisfaction. And all these needs are phrased in a solution agnostic way. So there's no app behind or button or any feature. It's just listen to favorite music when I'm on the go. The items on the bottom right are pretty interesting because they are underserved. So these needs are very important for the customers, but the satisfaction is currently rather low. So if you get these needs addressed better than the market or the competition, users might choose your product over others. So this can help you to prioritize. Maybe let's go for these needs first compared to all the other needs that also sound reasonable. The dots and the needs in the top left are also interesting, maybe if you want to reduce maintenance costs. So I don't want to go too deep here today. So it depends always on what you want to find out, but this can help you to prioritize what should be done next, creating the roadmap and so on. Last example is, imagine you're standing in front of a river with a bunch of people. So you can just tell your group, guys, we need to build a bridge. So everyone will start building a bridge. Okay, fine. But that's actually not the real goal, like with the mermaid before. So actually you want to cross the river. And if you tell the group, guys, we need to cross the river, what can we do? So everyone can think about what could be a solution. Of course, you can build a bridge, but you can build a raft, or you can swim across the river, or maybe there's a narrower point somewhere along the river. This is also a solution to cross the river. what I want to say with that example, again, is it's about understanding the job and not talking about a potential solution too early, because often we are like approached just as a metaphor. We often use this metaphor in discussions. Please build a bridge for me. You have like this amount of time. And then I'm always asked like why, to understand the circumstances. And to make the switch to software development, imagine you want the next release is in 2 weeks, and you want to improve the product for your customers and users. Maybe this bridge takes 2 or 3 months to build, so that's too long. You will not ship an improvement with the next release. But if the whole team knows not just about the bridge to build, but about we need to cross the river, so we want to allow our customers to cross the river with our product with the next release, and maybe there's a developer in your team understood the user, the use case, and the job to be done and all the needs. Maybe they can come up with like, with my framework, it's pretty easy to create a raft. It takes only 1 week, and we have even 1 week left to test. So let's try this out. You can ship this feature that addresses the need cross the river with the next release in 2 weeks, and then you can check if the need is addressed good enough, or if you need to improve, or maybe you still need to build the bridge. So this is just just an example. Just to quote Jeff Gotthelf, you guys might know him, author of Lean UX and some other very interesting articles and books out there, who says, give teams a problem to solve, not a solution to implement. So this is as with the bridge example. So people in your team need to know why you are doing what, which problem you are solving, and then you can have these discussions around your users, what could be potential solutions, instead of just talking about a solution from the beginning. And this has a lot to do with collaboration. This is very important. So because UX and experience and product stuff is not only related to the UX guys, the whole team is involved. And we do this by using that canvas. So we created the customer-centric value creation canvas. We didn't create this because there are not yet enough canvases out there, but this canvas directly relates to our framework, to the mindset, to the approach we teach internally. So we use this one to clarify the most important questions before we start a project. Can also be used during a project, but it's recommended to do upfront. So there's a trigger. So to answer the question, why are we working on this topic? Where is it coming from? Where's the do we maybe sales job or whatever? So everyone knows about it. Then you need to define and clarify goals, KPIs. What's the goal of the whole project? Maybe some requirements. Maybe there's another project running in parallel, which you should align with, or there are some limitations with technology, so also needs to be considered. And of course, define the main job. So is it listen to music? Is it feel like a mermaid? Is it remotely connect to another device? And who are your users? That can also often be many, but it helps to prioritize, at least at the beginning, to be able to focus on this or that user. Helps also in discussions and in prioritization also. And then the scope, so what is out of scope and so on. When this is clarified, we can move on and we can take care about users and their needs. We normally do a workshop internally and encourage everyone to think from the user perspective. So what need can you imagine when a user wants to cross the river or remotely connects to a device or whatever job you are working on? And of course, we also do research with users to find out their needs. But this, in this kickoff workshop, we encourage everyone to think from a user's perspective, and it helps to generate this this user-centric mindset to use this also later in discussions. And once this is done, we summarize the research insights and we phrase them normally as job stories, which is not the same as a user story. Don't want to go too deep here. And only then we think about what can be a potential solution, only when you clarified this important questions up front. And it helps a lot to discuss in the team, to align. How do you think about that? So when these questions are there, this helps to align, and this is how such a canvas can look like when everyone is invited to put their sticky notes on these specific areas. So we also defined some UX principles for us. The first and most important one is put the user at the center, because everything we do it for our users. So anything else doesn't make sense if there's no problem or a user out there who has a problem that needs that feature, why should we invest time to build the feature? So this is very important also to have that user-centric discussions in the teams when we are working on topics. And also very important, we want to make data-informed decisions to avoid opinion discussions with that, which doesn't very often not really help. We're not blindly following data, but we utilize it. So like usage data, how people use the product, and also any customer feedback, any user insight, interview, whatever we do is data we use to have data-informed discussions and decisions. And in order to achieve this, we created our user focus program, which is basically a user research database, where a lot of users are there. We can select users depending on what we are looking for, easily recruit users and do interviews with them, or also surveys. And actually easily reach out and quickly reach out to them to find the right ones to help us to develop the product. This is how it looks like for an editor or for me as an admin, the user focus program. And users can apply for it to join the program, and they provide us a lot of information like what are your IT skills, product familiarity, what is your roles, how often do you use the product, and many other. This is one part, so it's basically divided into two parts, the user part and the survey part, and this is how we can find users related to the target user group I'm looking for a specific topic. To really have reliable users in these discussions. These are the personas I'm working with, my team and my colleagues are working with in the area I'm working on. TeamViewer is a TeamViewer core product. We have an IT admin, an IT supporter, we have a home office worker, which has been everyone in the past 3 years, basically, from time to time, right? And also private users. They are defined in a specific way based on research insights and any insights we gather. They are based on that data we gathered. And then there's also definition how is the IT skill of SAM, and product loyalty, product familiarity can sometimes be very interesting. Which devices do they use when they use the product? How often do you use the product? Do they have a license? How much time do they spend? So general behavior and usage modes. And the bottom right, you see like jobs to be done, needs and goals, potential frustrations and pain points are also defined. So that's defined for SAM. And all this information, as I mentioned before, is also provided by our customers who apply for the user focus program. This means we can reach out to them and find, depending on how many filters we apply, we can find the right people, let's say real living personas. And for example, depending on the filters we use, we have like 300 or 400 SAMs in the user focus program. We can reach out to them and talk to them directly. The other section is the survey section. We have several templates to create surveys, but I want to mainly introduce the jobs to be done survey section. Quickly, I don't want to go too detailed into what jobs to be done is. This is a job map for the job support a user with a computer issue, or troubleshoot an end user issue, for example, or remotely connect to another device. And this is a job map which is divided into several stages. They have always a beginning, a middle, and an end. So, for example, the trigger is you get a ticket because the customer has a problem. Then the job starts, and then you prepare for the call. You're in the call, try to solve the issue. You monitor if you actually solved it, and when you solve the issue, then the job is done. Like you troubleshooted this end user issue with your customer. All these little post-its you see here are needs we uncovered in research. So, for example, they are all phrased with the same syntax. For example, minimize the time it takes to organize my contacts or devices when I need to find them later. And all these other post-its are phrased in a similar way. They are just structured in a job map that helps us to structure and cluster all the insights we get, because this is normally a mess when you have all the insights, and then we structure it first onto a job map. What we do next, we pick the most relevant ones, so sometimes need to pre-select, and put them into a survey, which could look like this. This is how users see the survey. So they want to minimize the time it takes to start a remote control session when I want to troubleshoot a computer problem, for example, and many other needs as well. And then maybe you imagine the example with the listen to music, what I showed you before. They can rate by importance and satisfaction. And what we get then is, as I also showed before, the data for, so we get evaluated needs. You see the score here, which is calculated by that formula I mentioned before, by importance and satisfaction. The list is longer, but this one helps us now. On the needs on top got the highest score, so very important and rather low satisfaction. And this helps us to prioritize, to discuss with product owner, product managers, other stakeholders. Maybe we should focus on these 5, 6 needs on top first because they are most relevant. On the left, you see that also a filter is applied. So you see only the ratings for the ones who have rather a high IT skill and who are IT admins. So we can also remove it or use other filters. And then you also can display it like with this map, similar to the one I showed you before. And this tells us now the underserved needs. Maybe you should consider the A2TFQ need, which is just the like to indicate them. Maybe we should focus on these ones first and not RMX because they're obviously not that important for the customers, even if they sounded reasonable at the beginning or after we did the research. So this helps us basically. That's how we quantify qualitative research insights, structure them, get data that helps us to argue later, to prioritize, and to present potential solutions to others also internally, and to have more confidence that we are working on the right topic because we have the data and we got a need from a customer in a qualitative interview, and 150 or 200 other customers rated it that way. So this gives us more confidence to be on the right path. Probably, hopefully, you agree with me that we all need to understand the problem first before we work on the solution. I'm not sure if this guy really said this. I just borrowed that quote from another presentation, but I just agree with it. So you really need to understand your problem first before you work on a solution. That's probably not new for you guys because yeah, however, so because when I don't know the problem, how should the solution look like? When I don't know the user and what they want to get done, I cannot start with any mockup, right? So, and therefore we created the framework I mentioned at the beginning. Based on some other frameworks out there, we also follow the Double Diamond and some other frameworks, which is based Double Diamond. You probably know it. So it's mainly divided into problem and solution space. So we have a lot of problems. You need to converge, like define which problems you're going to work on. Then you find many potential solutions, and you need to decide on which solutions you will like develop in the end. As said, some other frameworks have been considered, and based on that, we created that customer-centric value creation framework. This is the high-level definition or illustration of the framework, and I'm going to quickly introduce you to the framework. Don't worry, it sounds or it looks more complicated than it actually is. At the beginning, so there are like 3 or 5 stages. There's the initiation phase, then we have understand, explore, materialize, and then you basically release or deliver the solution. Before we start, as I mentioned with the canvas before, we need to clarify what are project goals, requirements, what's the main job, what's the user. So we just need to know this, otherwise we cannot really work. And then there's this first diamond. So actually we have 3 diamonds here. The first diamond is the understanding diamond. So we really do research, understand the customer, as I showed you before, find out a lot of needs, quantify them, prioritize the needs. This can also be done pragmatically. If we don't have a lot of time, we very often also do it pragmatically internally. As long as we know that it's a pragmatic approach, it's fine. And once we decided on the needs we are going to solve or address, we go into the exploration phase, like ideation, brainstorming, a workshop. Maybe create a mock-up. We check feasibility with the development and test again with users. And once we feel confident that this is a good solution, so we decide on a solution, then we can hand it over into the materializing phase, which can then be developed in, so we apply a Scrum, Agile, like build, measure, learn in iterations, and then you ship in, so you develop it in sprints and you ship it every 2 or 4 weeks, we ship a new improvement. So all these circles are independent of each other, but also overlap. So I can and I should do research all the time, just constantly checking with customers if there's new insights, if priorities of needs eventually maybe changed. So, and when there's new insights and a new priority, we can inform the exploration phase, and we can always work on the solutions. What can be a solution? What are the ideas? And also, once we decided on an idea, then okay, that's the idea, we want to develop it, we put it to the backlog, create the user stories, and then we develop it. So they are independent, the circles, but they inform basically the other circle. When there's a new insight, like new need or a new solution that shall be developed, it can go to the next phase. That's basically research and development, or research and design and development in a nutshell. Again, as a summary, so first we work with the canvas, then we do research and interviews, and then we prioritize the needs, and we use the job map, of course. Then we go into ideation and prototyping, put it to the backlog once we decide it, and then we can like create the product in sprints, and also think about marketing and promotion. If this is interesting to you, or if this is was too fast now because of the time, please feel free to reach out to my and check my article on Medium. I explained the whole approach there, and I'm also happy if you have questions, feel free to approach me. So what I wanted to show you today is that jobs to be done can be a great foundation to create value for customers, because it brings that customer-centered perspective, and also allows you to create data around that. In a nutshell, so how can you do this, or how we do it? So involve the customer, at least the perspective. So think from the customer's perspective, gather insights from them, quantify and prioritize their needs, and then find solutions that meet those needs, and okay, then develop it and ship it to the customer. So that's, again, in a nutshell. Or we can also phrase it with the quote from Tony Ulvik, who is he's an author of the Jobs to be Done book and many other great insights, and he's one of the early guys in that area. So innovation begins with identifying customer needs, and it ends in the creation of items they will buy. So in theory, pretty easy. What are your users or your customers? What needs and problems do they have? Find a solution, create a solution, and offer it to them, and that's it. So it sounds pretty easy in theory. In practice, that's the challenge. And I just showed you today how we approach this challenge with our customer-centric mindset and framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wolfram. That was a really good detailed insight into kind of the steps of how you go through it. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
We have a question that came in from Alexander Sedelmeier, and he was asking, could you give a more detailed example of a customer need? It doesn't have to be a TeamViewer one, but just one that can kind of help make it a bit more tangible.
So a customer need, others use outcome statements, we call it need statements, is the underlying needs to a job. So if you are listening to music, so if I'm working in a company that provides music stuff, and just listen to music is the main job, you do research and you find out a lot of needs. For example, minimize the time it takes to start my favorite music when I go running. That's a need. And that's always phrased in the same. We always use the same syntax. That's a need, and there are like 50 to 200 needs around the job, and that's actually what we are doing research with customers to find out the needs. When we talk to them, we ask, "Oh, did I get you right?" We get a confirmation for the need. Then, okay, thanks, that's a need, and then we quantify it with the research to be able to prioritize all the needs we uncovered. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it did for me. So it's a problem statement, kind of, is how.
Yeah. That's a very, very important thing. I don't care too much about how you phrase it, how you call it. You can even call a job a use case, even if it's wrong in my opinion. But if someone can work with a use case better than a job's to be done, you do not need to introduce a new term. So yeah, problem statement also fine. For me, I'm pretty pragmatic. Yeah.
And I found the book Jobs to be Done, if you really want to go detailed into how to kind of track and ask questions, I found that very useful. So if anybody out there would like that. I have some other questions, particularly about your user research program, like having all those people sign up. I'm jealous because it's such a huge resource. So we don't actually have time for it now, but I'm going to throw some questions into the Slack channel, and I'll invite you there to answer them. But particularly about how do you encourage that number of people to volunteer and to give their time to helping you would be, I think it'd be useful for other people if they could try to replicate something similar.
Yeah, sure. I will. I'm happy to answer these questions. Sure. Thanks.
Good. Well, that brings us to time. So thank you very much, Wolfram.
Thanks a lot also.
Great. So now up next, we have, apologies, not Wolfram again. We have Kamaksh, who will be sharing about what UX really is and breaking common myths of the UX field. So welcome, Kamaksh.
Hey, Rudy, thank you. Thank you for inviting. And Wolfram, really nice talk. I mean, I have lots to learn. My talk is not that meaty as Wolfram says, but it's all more on the philosophical side. And I'll try to be as rational as possible. Thank you. So I'll start. What UX really is, breaking common myths of the UX field. So what I wanted to talk about here in this podium is that uh, many of us, people who are in UX field, people who have joined, they keep hearing some myths from other people, and some of the people and some of the myths also affect the way we work, we approach UX, we take the way we take design decisions. So my talk is around that. So what are going to be the myths? Myths are uh, commonly used statements or practices used by people which does not quantify as a UX practice. So I will talk about that. So why talk about it? Because very less people are talking about it. So we can practice better UX, take more informed design decisions, and provide better experiences. And like I said, I'm not looking for trouble. Uh, I'm just quantifying these myths as how I understand that. For some of the audiences, they might not be myths. Some of them may or may not be a myth. So I'll start. Myth number one: UX is UI or UI or UX, and UX is not UI. You would have heard a lot of people saying, I am a UI UX designer or UX UI designer. First of all, according to me and broadly how most of the UXers will agree with me that it is not UI UX designer, it's a UX designer. We all of you must have seen this example where this illustration or example where they say the first one is UI and the other one is UX, where the first one helps you. First one is not a good UI. I mean, first one is a UI where it just helps you get the ketchup out, while the other one is real UX because it's upside down and it kind of getting the ketchup out is easy. I would say no. Both are UXs. I will talk about that later. You would have seen this as well, where uh, the path which is carved out is user experience, it comes as user experience, and the path which is made smooth path, which is considered as UI. Now let's go to the first example again. The first example, where they say it is UI, does it not have a user experience? Because taking the ketchup out is an experience. For the second up, where they call it a UX, does it not have interface? Like both the bottles have interfaces, right? and both the bottles have experiences of ketchup coming out. What you can say is maybe one has a better UX or other ones doesn't, or it can also, and again, it's very subjective. For some people, first might be the better UX. For some people, second might be the better UX. So please stop using these examples and stop seeing these examples if you are seeing somewhere, and please question them. Even this, right? Where is he walking without an interface? The carved out part is an interface. Here, even there is considerably less user experience, but there is interface is still here. We still see a path which is in interface, right? So the first one, again, the first one may be a good experience for some people who want to take a shortcut. For the second one is maybe not a good experience, people who want to take shortcut in save time. But think about it. People who cannot walk properly, people who are in wheelchairs, for them, the second one is a better experience, right? So none of them is UI or none of them is UX, both are UX. Some works for some people, some doesn't work for some people. As simple as that, right? Myth number 2, UI designers are not UX designers and UX designers are not UI designers. Many times we hear people saying, I'm not a UI guy, I'm a UX guy. There's nothing like that. According to me, designing a wireframe is also a UI job. And while designing user interfaces, understanding users, understanding business goals, user goals is very important. And that, again, a UX job. So there is nothing called UI is equal to UX or UX is equal to UI, or I'm a UI designer, I'm a UX designer. Everybody is a UX designer. It's just that somebody would design interface, somebody would not design interface. Somebody would only talk about, worry about user needs and designing usability and stuff like that. But the other person might be highly inclined towards interface designing. Doesn't mean doesn't mean one is thinking about the UX and other is not. Everybody is thinking about experiences, everybody is thinking about users, and everybody has to. So if you come across someone who is a UI designer, don't think of him or her as only UI designer. He is a UX designer that is inclined towards interface, and the UX designer that doesn't work or may work or may not work on interfaces. Myth number 3, product designers are senior to UX designers. So you would have seen this everywhere or many places that people say that I'm not a UX designer, I'm a product designer. I would say that that's not the case. Whether you are a product designer or you call yourself a product designer or a UX designer, you would end up doing the same thing that the UX designers do. Understanding users, understanding business goals, catering to UX user needs, making experiences easier for users. Everything comes as part of UX design, also the product design. Some people call themselves product designer just out of just consider that as a term and not as something which is much better, higher, or matured than UX designers. They both are same. These days, most of the people who are in UX field or people who are in product companies, they call themselves product designers. But that doesn't mean they are not UX designers. Or people who call themselves UX designers doesn't mean they cannot design products. In this example, if you see, user experience is on the other side while product design is on the center. While that should not be the case. User experience designer should also take care of what is business strategy. They also should have to take care of visual design. They also have to learn what is brand, how my brand is, and provide the brand experience. So whether you are a UX designer or a product designer, whatever you call yourself, you have to encompass everything that is related to providing a very good experience to the user. I've also seen this comparison, which is very bad according to me, because they say that product designer is more of a problem solver and technical profession guy, while the UX designer is not a problem solver. It is more of a creative and critical thinker. I don't agree with that. Whether you are a product or UX designer, you are problem solver. Whether creative or not, we'll talk about in the next slides. Myth number 4, UX is a creative field. Many people think that, or many people must be telling you that, oh, you are a creative guy, you are a creative guy if you are a UX guy. I would say no. I would say that most of the people who are in UX, they are a scientific, they are following a scientific practice, understanding user goals, understanding business goals, catering to users is everything is a science. It's backed by science. We meet users, we capture the data, we gather insights, we quantify or qualify researchers, and then we come across with the data points to put into our interfaces. So it is a science and not a creative field. I came across this example, this definition, which I found really helpful. Like UX designers combine creativity with the scientific method to meet user needs. Therefore, creativity is not part of the UX design, not artist is part of UX design, not artistically, but as a process to solve a problem, right? So it's we can't call ourselves creative designers. We can call ourselves UX designers only. We use creativity, but to solve problems, not to design buttons, because even buttons, colors, typography, everything comes from some amount of user interface or some amount of psychology study. The fonts that we use, the colors that we use, they are backed by psychological research. They are backed by psychological studies. For example, red and yellow colors are used to denote hunger. So all the McDonald's and KFCs of the world are in red and yellow color. Myth 5. Many people think that business knows everything about users, and you would have, as a UXer, you would have come across this in your organization in day-to-day, saying you don't need to meet users. Business knows users. Business would come to you saying that we know users. You ask us, don't go to them. Save time. I would say no, that should not be done, because a business will have different perspective of the user than you have. You would empathize with the user in a different way than the business would do. You should always rely on first-hand information so that you can actually understand what the user's mental model is and try to answer the problem with the good experience. And it's very important to own user research. Myth number 6, which says only we know UX. Only UXers know UX, other people do not know UX. I would say that's not again true. Everybody who is into business of serving digital mediums, or rather I would say visual mediums, they have to understand people. They have to understand people's subjective ideas as well, because we are into visual medium and everybody has the right to say something, and everybody has a right to give their solutions and suggestions. So you would say that if everybody can take a design decision, what would we do? So I would say yes. UX is everyone's job, but a UXer's main job is to defend design decisions for the sake of the user. Everybody can contribute to take and design decisions, but is UXer's main job to defend it and also drive the team towards taking an informed design decision that's best for the user and also for the business. Myth number 7 is UX is a job. We think that as a graphic design or some other design, or let's say as a product manager or as a developer, all these are jobs, and UX is also a job. I would say no, UX is not a job. UX is rather a practice. Like you practice to become a doctor, and then you practice more. The same way you study to become lawyer, and then you practice law. You practice law. So understanding UX as a practice is very important, because it's a way of life. It's not a job. So when we shut down our laptops at 6 p.m. or whatever time and then go home, we don't stop being a UX designer. We don't stop being a designer. Whether we are seeing traffic lights, whether we are using a cab, or whether we go home, go to someone else's house and see their interiors or see the furniture, we always perceive user experiences, and we always in our brains come out with possible solutions to solve problems that we find. We can never switch off our user experience thinking or design thinking mind, because it is a practice and it is not a job. So that's why it is very important to understand that we are always UXers 24/7. Myth number 8, UX is a standard practice. Like being a lawyer or being a doctor, you have a black and white. It's a standard practice. There are a set of rules, standards, but UX being a new field and also is being in a field to serve the user. Like they say, customer is a god. Whatever user needs, we have to provide. So whatever methodologies are supposed to be followed or employed, but whatever rules we have to bend in order to serve the best possible user experience to the user, we will use those respective methodologies and create those standards. So that's why there is no set standard or set rule. Like for example, the framework that Wolfram just explained to us is a framework that works for them. Doesn't mean that works for everybody, or doesn't mean one framework works for the other and other frameworks work for the other. The framework that we choose or we create has to best fit our product design methodologies than it fitting so one size fits all methodology. Myth number 9, UX can be taught. UX, according to me, UX, user experience, cannot be taught. But again, I'm not against people who teach UX. Even I teach UX. But what we normally teach is the methodologies and not what user experience is, because there is an empathy which has to be cultivated, and empathy cannot be learned overnight. Empathy has to come with a practice, and it has to be practiced. It will only come with building more and more empathy with the customer, understand them better and better day by day, and then keep providing better user experience and keep bettering a user experience one day at a time. Many people think that research is only researcher's job. I would say no. Research is everybody's job. Everybody has to understand the user needs. Everybody has to go and meet users in order to understand their mental model. It's very, very important to understand what user wants, and is always important to rely on first-hand information than to rely on second-hand information. So even if you are a UXer and you have a in-house research team, please accompany your researchers in the research methodologies, research activities, and try to understand what user wants, and not just rely on second-hand information. Try to talk to users and see how they work, learn their behaviors, learn in which environment they operate, and so on and so forth, in order to again provide a user experience that they can emotionally relate with. Number 10 is UX is equal to CX. Many people think that customer experience is also same as user experience. No. While user experience is it's served in order to provide an experience to the user, customer experience is a broader term. User experience caters to, let's say, for example, we are booking a cab, and then on the cab, the way we behave on the app, the way the cabs are shown, might be considered as a user experience. But the way we behave with the cab guy physically, right? Let's say a cab guy talks rude to us, then it's a customer experience problem. It's not a user experience problem. Again, I would say that both are similar, but user experience is more dealt more towards the digital experience, and customer experience encompasses overall customer's experience. Like it has advertising, it has organization design, it has values, it has sales, it has product delivery, it has even customer research, which goes a little bit beyond the user research. So I would say, please understand that CX is a different form than a UX. Customer experience can be UX, but user experience cannot be customer experience always. Okay, so myth number 11, great knowledge of design tools is equal to great UX skills. You would have seen these kind of job titles which would say proficiency with Figma is very important, or proficiency with Adobe XD or Sketch is very important to become to be hired at our jobs. I mean at our company. I would say please don't pay attention to these kind of things, because like like owning a great camera doesn't mean you are a great photographer, but having a great photography skills means that you are a great photographer. Same way, just be able to use the design tools nicely doesn't mean you are a very good designer. You should the main part here is to understand users, have empathy with the users, and provide a very good experience, and do whatever it takes to provide the user experience, a great user experience beyond tools. Like I have seen people who design very good wireframes on pen and paper, on PowerPoint. I've seen people designing wireframes on Excel as well. So that doesn't mean that they are not UX designers. Many people think that I also come across people who say that can you teach me Figma? I want to become a UX designer. I tell them no, you don't need to learn Figma to become a UX designer. You have to develop empathy. You have to cultivate design thinking methodology, design thinking mindset in order to become a user experience designer. And that will only come with the practice. And I would say a passion to empathize with users, and interest of that. Having said that, I'm done, and I'm at the last point of my talk, which is great looking UI means great UX. Now, this myth is very important, because many times we see, and I mean non-UXers, they see good looking apps and they say this app is very good. I love the experience this app provides. Uh, what I would say is what the app designer using here is, and I would say what the user is suffering from here is the aesthetic usability effect. If you've heard of that, what aesthetic usability effect does is that anything that is designed aesthetically nice, it's considered to be a great user experience, or it's considered to be a very usable product. So you would have seen many designs or many apps which are very good in design, but they have a big navigation problem. There's a big problem of understanding where to go. So these apps might be highly visually designed apps, but they are not. They cannot provide good experience. So in order to provide good experience, it's very important to uh, build an experience that caters to users' need, and that takes care of all their pain points, and helps them uh, perform their tasks with limited amount of difficulty. Yes, and obviously, a great user experience has to meet with a great visual design in order to create the entire package of a user experience that not only works great but also looks great, and kind of user can feel emotionally great while talking to, or while interacting with the system. So these are my points, and like I said that these are not according to me, and these are not standard way of drawing out the myths, but these are myths according to me. Some people may or may not agree to some of them, or some people may agree to all of them. Some people may not agree to any of them, so all are welcome. But if you are learning UX, or if you are not a UXer, or again, even if you are a UXer and you agree with me, please take care of these things, and also please preach these myths to people so they can stay away from myths. They can provide better user experiences. They can be better user experience designers. They can stay relevant in the jobs, and also they that it changes the way they practice UX and take informed design decisions. Thank you. My name is Kamaksh Gangani, and I'm available at these handles. I work with JSW One, a steel company in India. And if you are in India, I'm really looking for some great UXers to join my team. So please talk to me. And any questions, please talk to me.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing your kind of case study and examples there. I really did like a couple of the points. I'm sure they hit home for a lot of people out there, particularly when there's multiple asks being made of the same
Fingers
question.
crossed. Yeah.
Great. So if anybody does have any questions, please do pop them into the chat boxes on whichever platform you're watching it on. But just to get started, one of the things that always comes up is particularly in small teams. So I get like a lot of the myths. It was that we're trying to almost overload too much onto one person, but on a small team, you do have to overload a lot of asks
Yeah.
to one person. So what's your advice for people out there if they are the single designer slash UX slash researcher on a team? How do they try to educate people that it's quite a lot of work?
Yeah, good question, because I also have come through, I mean, in my entire career, I also come through these situations where uh, people just consider you as a person who understands colors. But it's very important to tell them, what do you do? And you do that, you should do that by, as a designer, you should do that by showing them methodologies. Like, for example, create a framework that Wolfram has created, right? And tell people that this is what my practice is, this is what the process that I'm going to follow. And my process of providing a very good experience encompasses learning users, learning about users, talking to users, uh, learning what business goals are, talking to business people as well. It's not only product manager's job to talk to business, it's also a designer's job to talk to business as well, in order to understand what are the goals they have, what are they trying to understand, what are they trying to fulfill, what are the strategies they have, what they want to achieve by the new development. Uh, and also, it's very important again to be a cross-functional guy within product, tech, and also the business, uh, in order to weave that one user experience. So it's not only answers users' goals, also solves problems, also solves business problems, and also looks great at the same time, works great because of a great development. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it's always going to be a challenge, but it's a good approach.
Yeah, it is always challenge for everybody. I was thinking that it's the problem only in India, because people don't understand. People have tendency to jump to solutions rather than understanding problem, like Wolfram rightly mentioned. Uh, but then I realized that this is a problem which is everywhere. It's a global problem.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just one thing I want to jump in on. You mentioned about the tools, like they have to be great at Figma or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Now, the challenge, if I jump to the flip side of trying to recruit somebody, what other signals could you use? So if I ask for a photographer and they have a top of the range camera, it's a signal to me that, okay, they probably know what they're talking about. Um,
yeah.
what signals would you suggest then, if you're saying that tools aren't the right signal, what signals should people rely on?
Good question. So I'm not saying the tools are not a good signal. Tools are good signal, but not only tools. Many people get, or I've seen many recruiters get misguided by people knowing Figma very well, people knowing Sketch very well, but they do not know how to talk to users, how to understand insights from the user research. So it's very important. So for recruiters, my advice would be, uh, don't look at uh, uh, the tools that people have learned. Look at what kind of problems they have solved. Also, when you try to show yourself as a user experience designer, don't talk about tools that you know, because a tool can be learned in 4 days, right? But what cannot be learned in 4 days is the way you practice empathy, the way you understand a user, the way you kind of empathize with the user, understand their mental model. All has to be practiced, right? So all of this is very important to understand what kind of problem the person has solved, in order to understand that person is a good designer or not a good designer.
Excellent. Yeah. So do you have any, I guess the last one, what would be a question you would ask in an interview to try to get that nugget of have people those skills?
Yeah, my a simple question I ask is, tell me a great problem, design problem that you have solved. Tell me, start tell me a story of solving a great design problem, starting from how did you understand the problem, how did you get the problem, how did you understand the problem, what stakeholders did you go to understand the problem in a nutshell? How did you approach the users? How did you go about understanding the problems of the users, their goals, at the same time problems of their business goals? How did you marry the two goals? And what were your solutions? And how your solutions impacted what you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a great last bit, like the final
Yeah,
impact to make sure that.
yeah, that's very important.
Great. Well, that brings us to time. So thank you once again for sharing the myths of UI and UX.
I hope people follow that.
Excellent. Well, that brings us to the end of our session today. I hope you really enjoyed it. But to do the final plug, we are hosting a conference in New York in May, and we'll have 25 plus speakers, 800 attendees, and we'll very much have a cross of product, UX, design, and dev, because to kind of both the talks, you need everybody involved to get your product out there. You need your developers up front in the research. You need kind of everybody taking ownership of the usability and the way of working. So we tried to get everybody in a room, because there's no point trying to work together if you're not learning together. Great, so please do join us there. But if not, I look forward to seeing you at the next UXDX Online series. Thank you.